Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells all regarding family court, criminal court, and other court issues as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com. My recent book, Raised by These Wolves, Family and Juvenile Courts Continue to Destroy Future Generations, came out as a bestseller February 5th. And all my books are on audio as well on Amazon. And I do have a return guest. I have Marta Bryceland back on. The last time Marta was on was season 3, episode 94, way back in August 30th of 2022, where we discussed systemic abuse of family court and the effects of parental alienation on children. And today, Marta's back to invite parents and caretakers to join the community for Parents for Children's Best Interest. And you can reach Marta on pfcbi.org. And she also has testimonies on this website. She encourages court watching, emotional support, how to communicate with attorneys, and save children from what her child had been going through. And I want to welcome you back, Marta, because you're doing very, very important work, and I really appreciate you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you and Frank as well. We all been through the pain of separation with our children, and without the perseverance and continue work that you do and exposing and the sacrifice, we wouldn't be making the difference that we are making. We are getting heard. So our effort is not wasted, and I'm honored to be here with you and to do this work.
Oh, I'm very glad. I think it's just phenomenal work that you're doing. And when did you start the nonprofit? What got you going on that?
So it was registered in 2020, but we started, no, sorry, 2022, and we started doing some work, around that time. And what got me on it is that I have personal experience of loss of my child through injustices of family court,
Mhm.
and I am a very hardworking person, and
Mhm.
I believed in system before I realized that it's broken and not serving children. So I exhausted every remedy and realized that there's no solution. So I reached out to many organizations and realized there is no organization
Mhm.
that is helping my situation, my daughter's situation. So that's how the Parents for Children Best Interest came about. And we are only organization of this kind nationwide. And we are only organization that is found by parents, not government funded and not controlled. Um, so we can help.
Now, you've been helping caretakers and parents. Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of calls with parents in distress.
Yes.
Mm. You know, and how do you handle all that? How many calls would you say you get a week?
Well, at this time, I changed a little bit of a strategy. At first, it was, responding to the volumes of needs. Now we made it a little more streamlined and organized. I realized that, to help to have a bigger impact, it has to be a little more structured.
Hmm.
So I still have, calls that just come in and, in emergency situations to address, but we're focusing more on trying to bring some structure to be able to help more people. So, when the calls come, and Frank is the person that, for example, called at one point, um, we kind of help to de-escalate and
Hmm.
breathe and start, grounding and to empower the person to deal with the issue.
Right, because you're also striving to avoid court entirely and minimize the conflict between the parents, which I think is
Yes.
so important, is to not go in these courtrooms. And I don't know if you both are also helping parents and caretakers know how to talk to an attorney. I've always told them to just do their job, which you know what I mean. But it's very hard when you're not getting due process.
Yes. So, what I found, through changing attorneys, it's, at first I was like, I'm paying you a lot of money,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
You take care of it. And then things just didn't make sense. So then I kind of shifted and realized that the system is broken and what they're doing is not their job,
Mm.
but to get the best out of the situation, to work with attorneys that you have and to kind of get them to do as much as you can and be your ally, uh, but at the same time hold them accountable. So, having the communication in writing, having the follow-up emails, and not
Hmm.
getting too emotional, not getting into arguments, but holding them accountable. And you can kind of get a sense what type of person you deal with in the few interactions. So some attorneys, we can say it's a wolf, forget about it. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of them just make money and leave. But
Yes.
there's some that are better than others that
Hmm.
will move the needle, and we can help you to gear towards that one.
Definitely. In fact, in my case, my attorney called me to the office and he said, the kids want to be with you. And I said, but I just had the kids this weekend and they just want to go back to 50-50 like we had been for 10 years. He says, "Oh, okay, then we'll just roll with that." So your attorney has to work in tandem with you to what you and the children, well, of course mine were older. They were like late tweens, age. But he didn't want to increase the conflict. I didn't want to increase the conflict, but there are other parties that enjoy increasing the conflict.
Yes, and that's the very tragic part. And I made some TikTok videos about that to attorneys. Uh, you know, Benefiting financially from child harm is bad, is evil. So
Mhm.
I think people need to reevaluate what they're doing, the attorneys, to make the change.
I agree. And I guess I'll throw in there that I think judges and attorneys should have psych evals every 18 months in the family court area. We'll just say.
Definitely, there is an issue with personality disorders, ego problems, and yeah, I just saw the news. I sent it to you. The Pennsylvania judge assaulted his wife and daughter and like punched her in the face multiple times. And that's the family court judge. But what I'm glad to see, Maryann, that they are starting to arrest these judges.
Hmm.
And that's how I know we are making the difference.
And you also are making a huge difference. I've noticed that too, that there are more judges getting arrested. And I know parents are very anxious to see some type of resolution with the family court system. I don't see reform happening with how do you reform corruption?
You punish it very severely. You set an example,
Mhm.
and then you reevaluate, who you have, and then provide alternative.
Mhm.
So our organization is an alternative to family courts to find a way to educate the parents, to make them aware, to be better parents,
Mhm.
to resolve the conflict, to improve on your issues rather than fight and be adversarial. Family courts supposed to provide the alternative resolution. They're supposed to provide mediation, but they don't. So we also provide mediation, and we have been very successful in saving children, making a difference doing that. So it works.
Right. Now, how did you come up with the logo that you have for your nonprofit?
Um, it's kind of came through my heart,
Hmm.
watching, everything that's happening, that what happens is we're destroying the child's heart, right? We're breaking it in half, and it's not fair. And
Mhm.
then, I have an example of how we dealt with that with the child, which I think is a good time to bring, right?
Okay. Hey, Frank, why don't you join us and unmute yourself?
Hey, Frank.
There he is.
All right. Hello.
Hi, how are you? We're all wearing green today.
So it's very interesting what you're talking about, Marta. And I believe it's made an impact throughout the nation and across New York. And what Marta's gone through is a terrible story, but she's been able to bounce back and assist others. And it's been very good in many different ways.
Mhm.
So what would you guys like to talk about?
So this de-escalation of conflict with these parents who are involved in court proceedings, how do you all help them try to de-escalate something that's almost out of control?
Well, there's several different ways of going about it, and conversation and understanding and communication is a great start. Trying to
Mhm.
break it down, explain what some of the process and the procedures are, define the vocabulary and the words that are being used, evaluating the status and the whereabouts of where they are in their case, and then from there, there's a holistic approach, which
Mhm.
goes into diet, meditation,
Mhm.
getting out in the sun, activity, yoga, and and even with Marta's dogs, like they're wonderful little guys, and
Oh,
they they
isn't
give
he?
they give love, they show love, they reciprocate, and
Mhm.
it's very beneficial in multiple ways. I know Marta has brought Angel over to see many different people. Actually, a few have been on your show as well,
Mhm.
and it's been successful in de-escalating some of the conflict that's been going on, at least on one side. Um, and that generally, from what I'm aware of, that's generally the parent that has been alienated against.
It's very hard. A lot of people don't understand this parental alienation. And the way I explain it is that the one parent teaches the child to hate and fear the loving, fit parent.
Yes, and so that parental alienation subject is a very, very touchy subject,
Hmm.
right? Um, I'm a medical professional, a licensed nurse
Hmm.
practitioner, and in terms of the DSM category, it's not categorized as a mental illness to be billed for. But it is a fact that's happening, and there's a lot of discussion back and forth. Is it true? Is it not true? It is true. I am a victim of that because I grew up my mom alienating from my father. And when I grew up and realized that she was not correct, it was very sad to know I lost so many years of time with him
Hmm.
because I believed what my mom was saying, and I was, suggestive. I was a child. So um, right now we're reaching to stop that, to prevent that. And what we realize is people do it and they don't even realize sometimes they do it. And I
Hmm.
have a great example of a couple that we helped, very well educated medical professionals, wealthy, they have it all. And
Hmm.
then they're getting divorced. They have a 4-year-old boy,
Hmm.
and they compete for that boy's attention to the
Oh.
point of breaking his heart.
Hmm.
And it was like a simple example. As they were separating, I was intervening. I moved into the house to help to protect this child from what the two adults do, a fight over everything like dogs. And I don't know why people do that, but they do.
Hmm.
So we were walking at the sidewalk and getting ice cream. So the mom is like, "Oh, Johnny, grab my hand." And Johnny is about to do it. But the dad says, "No, Johnny, grab my hand."
Hmm.
And Johnny is like, "Oh, well, he's 4." And
Hmm.
the mom is like, "Well, who do you love more, mommy or daddy?" And daddy says, "No, no, you love daddy more. You want to go hold daddy's hair." And the boy's like, broken.
Right.
And at that point, I went down to the boy and I said, "You know what, Johnny, what you do now?" He's like, "What do I do?" He asked me. I'm like, "You
Hmm.
tell mommy I love you and I love you equally. And I want to hold both of your hands equally." And he just brightened up. So it's as simple as that. And then I send these parents education about children in between, and they learned it. And now the boy has good relationship both with mom and dad. So it's achievable, but
Hmm. Well,
people
sometimes
just
you,
get caught in it.
right, right. And you explained it to those parents as well, what this damage was doing to this little boy. And you really opened up perhaps dialogue between the both of them to treat their child not as a commodity, just it's your child. You love your child. The child needs both, provided there's no other things involved, if you know what I mean. But there's no reason people can't co-parent unless, like I said, if you're stuck with a personality disorder.
I mean, that's just another story.
Right.
There's every fourth person in America with mental health illness that is not treated. Our
Mhm.
mental health system does not provide the care that is needed.
Mhm.
So, I mean, guess what? Every fourth person is not fit to be a parent.
Mhm.
Or do we have to address these people behavior just like that? Like you're not competing of a child's love. Like,
Right.
hello, grow
Right.
up.
Right. Right. And
And for the bunch past maybe 6, 7, 8 years, there's been a national push for mental health and safety, which
hmm
has been utilized through all the state courts.
hmm
And sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not justified. Some of these professionals that are brought in actually have a real care and concern for what is going on. And whereas there are some that have been weaponized basically as hitmen for one particular side. And I'm sure we can all name some individuals that we're aware of on both sides.
Right.
So, but the court seems to have this tendency, from my experience and from what I've heard from others, is that they're making these professional diagnoses in the courtroom about individuals' health.
hmm
And they're not licensed to do that. They don't have the credentials to
hmm
do that. And
Correct.
in addition, the most comical part is there's not enough minutes within these mini hearings or conferences for them to even get a full picture or even on the record, because they like to tend to push toward um, settlements, whether on consent or not, that aren't fair, or they push individuals through services, and even upon completion of said services, even getting back into court for a change of circumstance and then proving it, and then the best interest standard is a whole nother ball game. That if you do have an attorney, they're not telling you that path down the road.
Yeah.
Whereas what we're doing is we're showing the process and the procedure, explaining, like specifically in New York, they have domestic relations law in Supreme Court for marriages, and then they have the Family Court Act for individuals that have not been married, and just explaining what the different articles are.
hmm
Article 4 is child support. Article 6 is custody and visitation. Article 8 is orders of protection. And Article 10 is neglect, abuse, and CPS.
hmm
And then and those are some of the roadmaps once you start breaking it down element by element, so that it's more digestible to understand what some of the process and procedure looks like, and what laws, if any, um, are to be followed. Because in many situations, facts are irrelevant.
hmm
Judges will or appear to make decisions on attorney conjecture without any proof, but The accountability comes in when you look at what the law actually says or what the process and procedure and that path actually is. And that's why it is important, whether you are represented by an attorney or you're a pro se individual, you take the time to learn and talk to other people and reach out for resources such as this wonderful group that's going on. We've had weekly calls for many years now. There's been different individuals going through the system here,
Mhm.
and it helps de-escalate. It's not necessarily trauma bonding, it's
Mhm.
an educational experience where you can
Yes.
see, right?
Yes,
Would you like
it's
to? Yeah.
education, and that's the big key, right? To improving the problem. People need to be educated, and going into the system, I thought it's what the movies show, the justice will prevail, but that's not what it is, right? And the
Mhm.
procedures are there in place, but if they're not being followed and applied equally, therefore we have the issue. Um, but not to say that going into it and preparing and knowing it is not going to give us better success. But first of all, we recommend avoiding it. But if
Mhm.
you're in it, we can help to teach you how to access transcripts, court records, sample motions, court watching, uh, and all the practical things that are there so you are empowered. And when you walk into that courtroom and there's people behind you, the judge knows if they violate the law, there is people watching and you know the law, and it's not going to go that easy. And that's what we can help with at Parents for Children Best Interests.
And that has been a successful model thus far. And then in addition, just having conversations about people's cases, because then patterns and practices tend to emerge and come into light. And it doesn't necessarily matter what county or courthouse, but there are many similarities
Mhm.
where the court system is actually trying to make it like a McDonald's drive-through.
Mhm.
And I'm not really a fan of case law per se because
Mhm.
everybody's case is different. Yes, there may be some similarities, which is what I just said, but whatever may be on the record may not constitute the entire record because they go off the record so often, or they limit evidence from exhibits going in. And so it's been a very challenging task to change
Mhm.
moving on up, and it's a complicated, long process going through the appeals and
Mhm.
that the appeals process, and that's a whole nother animal in and of itself.
Mhm.
But finally, in New York, we are seeing a little bit of a change. And hopefully, the next generation does not have to live or experience what their parents have gone through. And it can be different and more harmonious down the road. And I
Yeah.
advocate to stay out of the court systems. It's not beneficial. They will rob, ruin, steal all your assets.
Yeah,
Yeah, and,
extortion.
and and my big concern is the generation that's growing up of these children that are separated, that are alienated. These children are going to be disabled individuals. So it's not that, these children are going to grow up and we'll tuck them in somewhere. They're supposed to pay our uh, retirement fund, but if they're
Yeah,
disabled,
I'm on a national call right now. Can I talk to you a little bit? Yeah, and I'm aware. All right.
so yeah, do you have to go, Frank?
No, no, that was just my caseworker in the homeless shelter for
Okay.
my 2 week meeting. So hopefully I can get housing placement sometime soon. Since I've been in a homeless shelter on and off for the past 2 years since
Mhm.
my house was stolen, um, back in 2016 against my consent. I
Yes.
never authorized that.
So I wanted to talk about how I came to meet Frank and
Mhm.
how our organization had helped him out to come to where he was, to not where he needs to be, but much better place. So maybe Frank, you can kind of share what others, can receive, expect. I mean, what I did for Frank, it was a very exceptional thing. I normally don't do that, but then at the same time, it was exceptional circumstances.
Mhm.
But maybe Frank can share.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Marta and I, we were talking for a little while here and there, and then we decided to meet up in White Plains because there was a rally going on at the family court there.
Mhm.
And then from there, we went out, had lunch, had a conversation, and then we're like, well, let's go explore some resources. And I graduated Pace University, and right there in Pace, right there in White Plains, there's the law school for Pace.
Mhm.
So we went over to Pace to explore what resources could be there for parents or individuals that are in domestic violence situations.
Woman. It
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
was a
Um,
woman's center, better woman's center.
Mhm.
and then from there, Marta was like, "Well, I see that you're highly anxious. You're triggered in a bunch of different ways." And I was like, "Well, yeah, absolutely, I am." And
Mhm.
she's like, "Well, what kind of environment are you in right now?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty much in a war zone environment right now. There's rampant drug use down in the Bronx area.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I remember being woken up one night at 5 a.m. and there was NYPD and U.S. Marshals bum rushing the 25 person dorm.
Mhm.
Um, and they were looking for somebody, obviously. I had my property stolen there. I had my laptop stolen, my suit
Mhm.
stolen. I had 10 years worth of work of USBs and hard drives stolen from when I traveled across country with natives on horseback for this cause and other causes.
Mhm.
And Marta's like, I can't let you stay here. Goes, could just come with me for a little bit.
Mhm.
And she's like, you can always come back if you want, but for right now, like you need to just see a different scenery. And so I said, sure, let's do it.
Mhm.
And I went over to Marta's and beautiful, beautiful house. And I learned some of her situation of her beautiful house is under a lot of stress from not being in her house due to this.
Mhm.
However, we pushed along and we went food shopping, got all this wonderful, healthy, energizing food. I used to be a chef before going through this,
Oh.
but after the attorneys took all my retirement, I went back to
Mhm.
school to study law, and I became a paralegal at Marist College back in 2020.
Wow.
And so ever since, been working, well, not working, that's the wrong word, but helping out parents and whatnot with the little bit of knowledge that I do have and combining it with other empowered individuals that have their skill sets to help progress and reshape. I call it the perfect business model for them.
Mhm.
Because as Marta was just talking about, if you can destroy the nuclear family, then absolutely drug use,
Mhm.
pregnancy, dropping out of school for the next generation happens. Meanwhile, parents don't reach their higher earning potential because they're wrapped up in this court and they're selling their assets or having their assets taken while they're paying attorneys to go through this slow process, and the kids are being torn in separate directions. And so going over to Mars was a fresh breath of air.
Mhm.
It was it was a different perception and perspective, which was nice.
Mhm.
And in the morning, we'd make fresh fruit, healthy eggs. We would have whole grains. From there, we would take the dogs out for a walk in the little dog park. Then we would bring the yoga mats with us and in the sun, stretch out, play some meditation music.
Mhm.
And, after I got out of that fight or flight mode,
Right.
then we sat down and we started like sharing stories between our different cases.
Don't forget about
Found,
Angel that slept with you too.
yeah,
Aw.
yeah, and we found a lot of similarities. And similar to Marta, I've actually been incarcerated and arrested on child support and unserved, unnotified, on default decisions
I haven't
for,
been for child support.
well, yeah, not
I
for child
have.
support, but for, yeah. And actually,
Not
I
yet,
spent,
not yet.
yeah, my children were abducted at 10 weeks old and 19 months back in 2016. And I've spent more time in jail for this than I've actually seen my children. I've seen my children less than well, about 6 days total since 2016 to today's present.
I
And
think they
they,
use that as a tool for alienation as well.
without a doubt,
Hmm.
um, she was actually my supervisor at work, and I was terminated a few weeks after she filed for divorce. They allege that I owe 130 something thousand in child support, whereas I've made maybe 50 grand in 10 years.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's atrocious. That's why I wound up in a homeless shelter. They took my passport, they took my
Mm-hmm.
license. I got a real estate license when I went back to school, and they took that within 1 month. So I couldn't even get ahead. I had a great job with the Department of Corrections and Community Service, training inmates in the mess hall to give them skills for when they got out. But I lost that job because I was going to court so often. So I was terminated during my probationary period for time abuse.
Oh. They set these parents up and you and myself up to fail, all of us.
Correct, absolutely. I mean, I had tons of recommendations. Actually, one of the cool things about going back to school was I believe 7 out of the 8 teachers were attorneys that practiced in Dutchess County Family Court. One was a director for CPS, one was the director for the PINS program. Um, So I was like, wonderful. I've got these wonderful character references. I graduated with honors on the dean's list, inducted
Mhm.
into the National Honor Society. I did better at the age of 40 than I did when I was 20. But my motivation was, the children.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that did not matter. Um, and so, I mean, I definitely have a biased view of the court system in multiple ways, and that's why I advocate for people to try to stay out of it.
Mhm.
But also there are holistic approaches to go about dealing with the negativity of what comes from the court system. And that's where Marta's nonprofit comes in. Because if you're able to balance, get homeostasis, you're safe.
Mhm.
That's a big thing, being safe. And
Right.
once you're safe, some of your basic needs get met. And I believe that's what Maslow's hierarchy pyramid right there, with
Mhm.
the different several levels of achieving going upwards. So once you're able to get out of that fight or flight, and then you have a consistent roof over your head and consistent food, now you're able to think more clearly and have conversations. Yes, you may still be triggered in some ways or some environments, but at least you're able to communicate with other individuals to de-escalate and breathe. And then from there, it's still an uphill battle for the most part, but now you're developing a network of individuals who are going through something similar that can share their experiences, like we were previously talking about, and the tools and resources of what worked and what did not work. And sometimes it's more important to know what doesn't work so that you don't
Mhm.
repeat that step.
I agree, Frank, because when you said they took away your insurance or your licensure, and I was an insurance agent also, as well as a registered nurse, like I was with Aflac, and they
Oh,
yanked that right away, like you said, within a month, right? Then they took my passport, because I'm so dangerous, and like I wasn't going to go anywhere. And I don't know if they told you this, and I don't know if this is true or if anyone can answer this, but one inmate told me while I was in the Erie County Prison that each day you're in there, you are paying toward your child support. And it's like, how? I'm like, I don't know how you.
Yeah, it depends on the state, but if they find you that you voluntarily quit your job or left your job, which it actually did in my case, then absolutely it keeps accruing.
Right.
And mine actually, I'm doing a nunc pro tunc de novo. because I never made the amount of money that they said that I made, and they actually increased it to 1.5 times my salary. And then she abandoned the household, ran home to mommy, stuck me with the bills of the house.
Mm.
And I was also paying the health insurance for the family as well. So the house went into foreclosure within 2 months. I mean, I managed to save it, but I never saw a penny from the sale of the house either. It all went to attorneys and her. And I was
Oh,
being the nice guy. I actually said, sure, sure. But yeah, I never got it. And
oh,
yeah, it's a terrible system, this family court right now.
right, right.
It's lucrative for many, and it's crushing for so many others, including the children.
Hmm.
I mean, these children, they're missing out on the other half of the family in so many ways, and it's truly despicable. But thank God there are ways after you get through some of the process and you see what actually is happening, then you can take the breath and stop acting emotionally. So stop acting reactive
Right.
because now you have a comprehension of what is actually happening. And then you can attack it, not necessarily attack it, that's the wrong word, but go about it in such a
Hmm.
way where your arguments is more concrete based upon process, procedure, and the law, as opposed to a false narrative or facts that they won't accept. So
Right.
that's where it gets right. That's where it gets really interesting because at one point in time, it does not the facts don't matter because in New York it's based upon discretion of the judge.
Hmm. Hmm. Same here over here in Pennsylvania. It's
And
terrible.
and what's fascinating, I believe it was 2002, that's when they amended the Family Court Act, Article 654, and that's when they removed um, they gave the discretion to the judge as opposed to going by the evidence.
Right.
And so, and these courts, I actually went out to Missouri and I was at the National Convention for Family Law Judges, which was highly interesting a
Hmm.
few years ago. But these judges, their excuse, and I use that word intentionally, excuse is to err on the side of caution.
Hmm.
But meanwhile, it's only further weaponizing and dividing what's going on. And and generally, it's if you don't have the right attorney from the get-go, and
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of attorneys. I will
Right.
absolutely state that again. I'm not a fan of attorneys. From the attorneys that I have had and the attorneys that I know that operate in the family court system, they're only there to collect money. The
Mhm.
AFCs are the same way. And the rest of the individuals that collect off of the system, it's so that their kids can go to private school and other people's lives get destroyed.
I
Um,
agree. And I think it's terrible that these judges, at their discretion and whim, can increase your arrears. Like my arrears were like, we'll say 11,000, but the judge tacked on another 3,000. Who does that?
just like that.
Just like that. It's like, then, like you said, they impute you at a figure you never made. How did that happen?
So
So
in my child support case, my child support is calculated based on income that I had before I became disabled.
Mm,
So the father filed falsely fraudulent income, alleging I make $160,000 as nurse practitioner,
oh,
and that's what I pay child support on, even though I'm on disability and the disability income is 40,000. So I am paying 4 times more than I'm supposed to, and that's a big challenge. Um, so that's also being taken up with Inspector General of New York and also FBI because
mhm,
it's Title 4 D&E fraud, this false enforcement of child support based on falsely, knowingly known false income.
mhm,
So it's a crime. It's a crime that's affecting all citizens because we pay federal taxes that are
Hmm.
supposed to go to protect the families, but they are going to benefit the states based on children's separation. So yeah, uh, my child support is an item too, but I'm always less concerned about the money and more concerned about the well-being of children
Hmm.
because money comes, money goes, but time you cannot ever get back, and these children damage is done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like Marta, I'm disabled as well, since January of 2020. And same situation, the child support has not been modified or changed, up until I've been putting in these new petitions. And where in fact, I was able to get disability for legal abuse and depression and anxiety.
Hmm.
And it's now in the DSM, the legal abuse,
Yes.
and it was able to be well documented in the federal court. And so there are many other parents out there that have had their lives uprooted, been abused in so many ways, psychologically, financially, physically,
Yep,
and with these children. And it's really terrible that our own government and government systems have done this to good, productive members of society, that they've actually criminalized parents in
yep.
multiple ways.
Yep. It's a despicable, and I'm very concerned that if this is gonna keep going this way and the people are not gonna do anything, it's going one way, uh only bad way. So like people really need to educate themselves because it really affects everyone. It's not just the people that lost the children, but it's the people that pay taxes that are going wasted and for wrong
Hmm.
reasons, for fraud. And then it's the people that are gonna deal with these children that are disturbed. My child is deeply disturbed. She's mentally ill.
Hmm. Hmm.
She is suffering from Stockholm syndrome. She believes abuse is love. I'm sorry I used the word,
No,
but
that's fine.
that's what's happening. So if you grow up this generation of children understanding harm, hurt, control, manipulation, lies as a family, I mean, we're lost. The nation
Mhm.
is lost.
And
So,
then in addition, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark, but then in addition, you have the whole COVID episode where my view and perspective was much different because I was traveling that time.
Mhm.
But a lot of the country does believe that there were lockdowns that happened. And yet again, physical contact between a parent and a child did not necessarily take place on the regular,
Mhm.
let alone with the other parts of society as well, not just limited to family court litigants. But at the same time, a lot of these children are under a tremendous amount of stress. They're highly confused, from what I believe. They don't know necessarily who or what or how to believe what is actually happening because they don't have the mental capacity at such a young age to
yes,
determine and decipher. And
and
that's
it's
why
a
what we're doing here is
dissociation.
wonderful.
It's a
Yes.
dissociation. I'm
Mhm.
a mental health nurse practitioner. So what's happening? These children are dissociating. They don't know what the truth is. They don't know what reality is. So Frank at some point mentioned there is this experiment going on that these children are being brought up like this, and it's scary.
Right.
And I am going to save my child one way or another. But like people should be really concerned.
Right. And these children have no respect for law enforcement. They cannot think for themselves. This is what I'm finding talking to a lot of other parents on top of myself. And the shared persecutory delusion that's installed into these children's minds of something that never happened, that the other parent dreams up to brainwash them into their minds, that never happened. It's disgusting, and it is child psychological abuse, and that's in the DSM-5 V995.51, and the courts have got to recognize that this has got to stop, and it has to be treated along with other forms of abuse.
Yeah, or I say always prevent it. It's you're a nurse. $1 spent on prevention is $10 spent on treatment.
Right.
Unless the purpose is to create sick people to treat. But it's definitely not my purpose to bring child to this world to get them sick and treat them.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, they took my child, and
Hmm.
it's very regrettable because it's wrong. Um,
And this is why this sandwich approach is more beneficial because on one side of the coin, you've got assistant parents and children as well in dealing with handling different issues. And on the other side of the sandwich, you're also teaching about how the legal system operates and works. So that way you can nip it on the tail and you can nip it in the head. And therefore, at some point in time, it should dissipate, slow down, and hopefully eradicate and consume itself as the cancer that it truly is.
Mhm. Yeah, cancer is a good word.
Yeah, it needs to be. I think family court just should be dissolved because you cannot reform corruption. All they're doing is churning out families and these children to have personality disorders, to wait for the next generation to get married and do this again.
Now, I mean, I do believe like we could all agree that family court was designed for attorneys to not operate in, and that it was supposed to be parents going there to resolve their issues
Mhm.
in a short amount of time. That's the perception that I was under. Um, but at this point, it's very difficult to believe that this is not intentional.
Mm.
So I would love to sit down with some legislators. Well, I've attempted to for so
Mhm.
many years and say, look at these statistics right here. Here is the law from the bill that you all passed. Was this your intent and design for this to happen? Because
Mhm.
this is the actuality of what is happening. It's
Well,
destroying the youth.
a good question, Frank. So I dug deeper, and Title 4 D&E was not designed to to incentivize family separation. Title 4 D&E was built to actually help to support the children financially where the family separation began to be a common thing, right? So enforce that the children need to be financially supported. But then it turned into uh, a beneficial source of income for states where they get matched with enforcement, with ordering false services, false need. And as a nurse practitioner, with the Medicaid and Medicare billing privileges, I've been asked to order services that are not necessary for the patients just to make an office money.
Mhm.
So at that point, because I have this very deep internal moral compass,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm not ordering X-ray for this guy just so you can make $50.
Mhm.
Well, but then the visit is not going to pay.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not exposing a human being to an X-ray machine if there is no
Mhm.
medical necessity. And I can say that, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when the judges asked, you need to make money for states. Guess what? We're bankrupt. You need to order supervised services because the supervised social worker charges $100 an hour and we're going to get 200 back. So what
Mm.
is that? It's human trafficking.
Right.
So
Right.
people are doing this to each other. So one of my TikTok videos is just about that. When you're at your job, at your profession, and you're asked to do something as if you're a human being, you're gonna feel something like it's wrong. You don't just separate families to make monies for states.
Hmm.
This
Right.
is just morally unacceptable. And if you do that, you probably have problems sleeping and you're going to end up being an alcoholic or a drug addict because if you have a spirit, if you're human, it's going to bother you a little bit. So we need to go like right there, to each individual to say, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to do that. I'm not going to build a state from harm of these children. But I think it's a long road before we get there. But I
Hmm.
can just speak on my own example where I realized like this is fraud. I'm not ordering that x-ray. I'm not ordering that blood work. And so, you know, I'm not a good doctor. At least not for Medicaid or the office, right? Because
Hmm.
people are people to me. They're not a Medicaid number. They're not a docket number. They're not a file number. They're a human being. And I work in nursing homes in New York, and I was going for a job interview, and the nursing director that's wearing a Louis Vuitton purse and Louis Vuitton shoes, and I ask, what kind of patients do you accept here in this nursing home? Because some patients are more challenging. I want to know like what I'm going to deal with.
Hmm.
Well, if they have a Medicaid and they have a pulse, they qualify.
Oh.
So
As a
this is what
cash
it
cow.
so this is what it comes down to. So I experienced that
Hmm.
on my own and I get a goosebump saying that, but this is a true story. And I work in that nursing home and I had very sick people that should not be there. And I send them to the hospital and I saved many lives.
Hmm.
But then they came to me and they said, well, you should keep this patient in a nursing home because when you put IV fluids on the patient, it's $1,000 a day, and then we can do IV fluids in a nursing home.
Hmm.
I'm like, no, not when your nurse have 30 patients. You cannot do IV fluids. You will not get $1,000 a day. So I'm a bad nurse practitioner for Medicaid or for fraud.
Hmm.
Well,
Um,
you shouldn't say that, Marty. It's because you have the empathy and the humanistic view of what actually can work as opposed to what the mass production of the cash cow is pushing for people to afford their lifestyles based upon predatory practices that harm the vulnerable population. And I mean, I'm sure you can agree with me when we're talking about the child support and the intent of it. Um, if anybody actually read the Social Security Act, A, B, C does not exist, D, and E, they would actually see that we are actually slaves to the system. And the whole purpose, supposedly, for child support was with the progressive movement of women being stay-at-home moms and the dad being the sole provider way back when, it was to ensure that if there was a divorce, that the individual that was not working would be taken care of so that they would not wind up on social services.
Right.
And which actually sounds great. But back in 95 with the ASFA Act, that all changed and it became exploited.
Hmm.
And child support technically is voluntary unless the custodial parent is on social services because then those funds are to be repaid. However, as Marta was previously speaking about, even though it is voluntary, the attorneys and the courts push for it because there are many doors of opportunity and extremely lucrative ways to exploit
I'm
income
sorry.
coming in.
I'm sorry. I just have to firmly disagree. So what you're
Correct.
saying may be a theory that the child support is voluntary and it's designed if you are on the Social Security or government assistance. In my case, it's exactly opposite.
Hmm.
I was on
Well,
food
no, no, here,
stamps
let me
and
clarify just for the
my
vets.
my New York unemployment was garnished
Mm.
to
Oh, mine,
pay
mine
a
too.
millionaire. So exactly opposite. So what you're saying, maybe it's a
Well,
theory,
well, no, no,
right?
hang on
The
one second.
theory is correct, but what it happens is exactly opposite, right?
Well, no, not necessarily, because technically it is voluntary up until the custodial parent goes to the child support office and says,
Mm.
I want to fill out the application. And then
Okay.
from there,
So
right.
it's not
So that's what
voluntary
I'm saying.
because the courts, okay, I get it. Because the courts are then enforcing it. So in my case, they garnished, I had after my hit and run accident, I had $300 food stamps and cash assistance. And then
Mm.
I started trying to get a job. So I got unemployment and they took away half of my unemployment.
I know, I agree.
And I was still getting food stamps and cash assistance. So how does that make any sense? It
Well,
doesn't, right?
what I found was that when I was working at a fabric store and I opened up my check, it was like $14. So I called up the company. I said, why is that? And they said, well, you are in the arrears. Like, how did they know that? And we're taking 66% out of the paycheck because of that. So there are companies, I looked this up, there are companies that participate in the Title 4D funding so they can get some type of kickback.
Oh, so the employers benefit too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Also, yeah,
basically,
some do.
being a parent is a cash cow,
Yep.
a child is a cash cow, and then you're a criminal as a parent. So like I think these people that are in charge, whatever they're coming up, they kind of contradicting themselves because kind of you want us to produce these slaves, but kind of you punish us for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe why not just clone people and make them slaves right from the beginning, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what is actually interesting that appears to have happened to all of us here, on that income withholding garnishment form, on the back page on the for New York, on the back of the first page, it in fine print, it actually specifically says that the law states that you can only garnish 50 to 55% if the parent has a dependent and a new spouse, and 60 to 65 on the flip side. However, on the front page, the garnishment could be highly excessive, 66%. Marta's was extreme as well. They were taking upwards of 80% of my income at one point, income and then unemployment. And now, most recently, they're going after my disability, where they want to take 78% of my disability pay, which would actually leave me below the poverty line. And
So
anybody that gets unemployment, they're basically below the poverty line as well to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why the Parents for Children Best Interest is created, and that's why the community is created. So people come together, they share their similar experience that sound unbelievable and mind-blowing,
Mm-hmm.
but there is more of us, and together we have a power. Separate, we're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, I want to encourage to join the community. And then I want you, Frank, to kind of say in a nutshell how the help of parents of children best interest has helped you personally. What was good about it? And, we're not a miracle makers. We didn't get your children back. We didn't wipe out your death, but we got you from one place to a higher place where you could
Right.
do what you couldn't do before, right?
Right, absolutely, Mark. So instead of being in this constant grind of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
it was able to take a step back, take a breath, reanalyze, put your toes in the dirt kind of philosophy, um, re-energize,
Mm-hmm.
and then just analyze what the current situation is so that you're able to make well thought out plans of action moving forward for yourself and then for your family, so that down the road, if there is some change or there is some possible judge that's willing to actually take the time to understand what's going on, then there is that glimpse of hope down the road to have a relationship with your children and actually prosper as well.
Mhm.
Because I
So,
tend to,
I'm
what's
sorry,
that?
go ahead.
No, I
So
mean,
would you say we have empowered you and give you some hope?
um, well, yes, absolutely. The hope has always been there. There's always hard times, but they're like waves in the ocean. Sometimes they come, sometimes they go. But it was more about feeling the empathy, the love, the care, and the time that I spent with Marta about the holistic, about taking care of your body, taking care of your minds, and just taking time to yourself. And so,
And loving yourself, right? And
right,
getting sleep and getting food and just going kind of back to the basics, but also feeling like a human being because what's happening in the courts is dehumanizing. So when the Frank came, I'm like, sleep, rest, there's food, and there's more food, and there's Angel, and there's River, go for a walk, just
absolutely.
worry about
And
nothing, just be.
Mhm.
just
And
be. And
then
then,
after 3 days of sleeping, he's like, I feel like a human being again.
right. Oh, I was feeling like a beaten down dog for the longest time. It was terrible. And I don't wish that upon anybody else. I really don't. It's atrocious that the systems that you believe, go talk to a cop, they'll help. Hire an attorney, they'll help. Turn out to not be the case. But it's wonderful individuals out there that open up their ears, open up their arms, open up their houses, and they do it just out of genuineness and care so that they can share what they have as far as education, warmth, another way of looking at things so that you can calm down and just breathe and just be. Because
Mhm.
once you're in that headspace, then you can move mountains. And if you have a team around you with the same type of energy, you absolutely can change whatever you need to change. And I believe over in Thailand, I just heard there's like 1 million people coming together that are looking to meditate.
Mhm.
And it sounds ideal. But within our communities, if we can get people to just open up to taking a breath, seeing what is the actual issue, realizing that it's not just you, there's this pattern, practice, and system that is predatory, preying on you and your children,
Mhm.
and stop or limit the reaction of the emotional side of it so that you can use that emotion in a different way and redirect it for
Mhm.
health and happiness.
Right. And then emotion, right, is a normal human response. But emotion can be also weaponized against you. So in like it's healthy to be human emotional, but then the courts and the system is using that against us. So Frank had felt the emotion of feeling safe and calm, and then he could start like thinking like, I want to do this. I want to get rid of this warrant.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then I'm like, okay, and let's think and let's be like productive. So we were like very productive. He helped me work on my case. I helped him work on his case. And what I'm trying to also bring and impress that together we were stronger. Like
Mhm.
I looked at his case and I saw things he couldn't see. He looked at my case and he saw things I couldn't see because through my emotion, I was like, this is the most important thing that happened. But
Mhm.
that wasn't legally the most important thing that happened. And same the other way around. I look at Frank's case, he's like, this cop, this, and he said this. I'm like, it's not important, Frank. What's important is this piece of evidence that's gonna set you free. And then
Mhm.
he's like, you're right. So
Right.
together, we're stronger. We can see pass through some of emotions. Like I'm like, I care that this cop said this and hurt you, but it doesn't matter for you getting out of jail free. This what matters. And the same he did for my case. So together we build something stronger for each other. So that's why, you know, being a
And
community.
that's where it comes into the jurisprudence of the
Mhm.
law where the conversations take place. And it has nothing to do with telling somebody what to do. It has nothing to do with that, or even advising them on a strategy. It has nothing to do with that. It's
Mhm.
these are what the definitions are. This is the process and the procedure. These are the issues. These are the elements, and it's breaking it down 101 style because I'm sure we're all smarter than a lot of attorneys out there. They
Mhm.
just went to school and passed the bar. So I mean, I know for I'm not, there's some attorneys that are smarter than me, and there's some that aren't.
Mhm.
But it took a long time to believe in myself, to realize that I do have the education and the experience behind it to say, you know what, something doesn't smell right here. It's time to look into it. And then meeting individuals like Marta,
Mhm.
we're able to see the patterns and the practices. And there's been hundreds of people that, in all honesty, there's well thousands that we've spoken with over many, many years.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to see what what their what the agenda is. And
Mhm.
so once that's there, but it's also attacking it from process and procedure. And that's what tends to win.
Mhm.
And so there are more results happening by going that route rather than, as Marta was saying, I think that these facts are important in my case. Well, she's the set of eyes that is removed that wasn't present. And she has an emotional investment, but she doesn't have that type of emotional investment. So she's able to see and view it because of her experiences, what she's learned, and with other cases, and vice versa. It's almost like doing a forensic audit on cases.
Yeah, and
And
what hurts Frank feelings might be important, but to put the checklist, this is what you need to get rid of this case. Well, this is what meets the checklist. So it's not practicing law. It's kind of like, I call it like if you have like a project to do, and then the teacher tells you, you need to write this paragraph and it needs to have this, this, and this. Well, then you follow the teacher's direction. The same goes with the lawsuits, with the law, with the motions. Every motion is supposed to have check marks.
Mhm.
And that's what we kind of, you know, educate the parents about. Like, if you want to file this type of motion and you want to request this, you're supposed to check these marks.
Mhm.
If you don't have these marks, well, you have a weaker argument. But then,
Mhm.
there's another problem that even if you check all the marks, the judges are still not following the law.
Right.
So where we go to is the next level of federal injunction, of judicial
vice,
ethics violations,
Mhm.
violating law knowingly, which, we go to the next level. And I feel like, that's where we are at, and where people feel like family court follows the law. Well, they don't.
No.
We
No.
know the law and we ask them to follow it, but they don't. And then there's no accountability.
No.
So, and then the appellate courts are not doing that either.
Mm-mm.
So it's not enough that people will know the CPLR and they'll know the case law and they'll put the motion, because I did that. And I was praised by judges. I'm like, wow, you did this. Good job. Denied.
right,
So
that
Oh,
does happen.
you're laughing right in my face. You're
right.
spitting on me and you tell me it's raining. And I don't love it.
Well,
But that's sorry, what were you going to say, Mary?
oh, I was going to tell you that when I was running my federal case, it had gone on. I kept it alive for a year until we had a status telephonic phone conference, right? The judge, who's a magistrate in federal court, actually admitted he did not read my exhibits, my evidence. So the next day, I had to file a motion for him to read the evidence. Where are taxpayer dollars going? Can someone tell me in Erie, Pennsylvania? Where is it going?
Well, I mean, but
The problem.
that's
The
interesting that you
problem.
said that. because it also depends on how things are introduced. Because technically, you have to get an exhibit into evidence for the judge to review it. And then, so that's the process and the procedure right there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're making an argument. And and that argument, from my experience for a lot of years and seeing other people's cases, they don't care. They have a narrative and they're going with that one narrative, and that's it. However, there has been a little more success lately since there's been a change of guard in the New York system, not
Mm.
necessarily from me and not necessarily from Marta, but for other people that have followed some of this. They're actually tending to, because we're actually made examples of by
Mm-hmm.
speaking up and speaking out. And so it's, well, if you're going to be like that one, well, your children are going to be taken, your assets are going to be taken. And so some people have fear. And it's not a, and once you can get past being fearless, then you have the confidence to move forward and attack it for what it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank is very like he has a very good memory for CPLR and all that laws and applying it. I applied it and I know they disregard it, right?
Right.
So I'm already at the point where if I'm following all your steps and you are not following all your steps, like we have a big problem because if you're
Mm-hmm.
not applying the same rules to me and you, then we're not equal, right? So who am I, right? Who are you? That the same law is written and you don't obey it. For example, and that's what we just like had this kind of email exchange with Frank. There is a CPLR 2106 in New York, which is a statement. I swear and affirm under penalty of perjury that following statements are true and made in the knowledge that is will gonna become a part of a record. Well, that sworn statement is a key for this piece of writing to become an evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a gold statement. And I pointed that out in my family court case where the father of my child wrote things about me without making that sworn statement. So he said, she's this and that. She has this mental illness. She has Munchausen. She has borderline. She has bipolar. She's psychotic. All
Oh.
these things he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the forensic evaluation was triggered. The actual psychologist that has a license to diagnose mental illnesses said, no, it's not true. But then, besides the point that my ex wrote these statements and the judge accepted it as evidence. But there was no CPLR 2106 attached. So this is a letter to the court, what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So now the judge accepted a letter to the court as an evidence. And this is not an accident. If the judge doesn't know CPLR 2106 and accepts my ex's letter as an evidence and puts me through forensic evaluation that costs $120,000 altogether, it's a joke. It's a
Mm-hmm.
joke that they're making mockery out of people.
Mm.
And I pointed it out. I pointed it out in a second appellate division. I'm like, the appellate division should note that all these statements are letters to the court and they're not to be considered as legal documents.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all garbage.
And that was great because I think
And
that
it's the
came out.
truth. But
Yeah.
let me tell you something funnier. Now, I wrote the TPLR 2106, but I made a mistake because I have traumatic brain injury. So I said the foregoing words, but I said is a before words, something like that. And his attorney wrote a motion to dismiss my affirmation because I didn't follow CPLR 2106. So he took my argument to dismiss my motion. How funny is that?
And I think the law changed on that around January 1st, 2024. I
No, no,
used to be
that's change only whether it's affirmation or affidavit. But the fact that you
right.
swear and affirm has not changed.
Well,
So if you swear and
that's the
affirm,
difference.
it's a legal document.
Correct.
If you just spit a diarrhea out of your mouth, it's a joke.
And I used to have my notary, but I didn't renew it because of 2106 came out. And so now you can do the affirmation instead of an
Yeah,
affidavit.
yeah.
And
But
so
you
there
still
was
have to swear and affirm. And if you don't swear and affirm, you're
uh,
writing a letter, and then you cannot be held accountable for perjury.
right. So that
So that's
relief,
important, right?
it's very important because that relief the judge cannot prescribe. And so now they're accepting
A
this
letter
conjecture
to
or a
take
letter.
custody from parents.
Right.
Yeah, it's a big problem. Big
They found
problem.
another way to manipulate it.
No,
Yes.
no, it's a joke,
Oh, I
Like the
know.
justice system, it became so complicated that average person cannot understand it. And you
Mhm.
should not be not an average person to get access to justice. And you should not have $20,000 to blow to get access to justice. So what it becomes to is if you're rich and you can afford attorney, you can get justice. But if
But
you are not, then
at
you
the same
can't.
time, you should not be going through the system for so many
Mm.
years without, we do have rights still in this country, but they're not being honored or upheld, even though they're being invoked by many parents.
Tell me which rights we still have, because that would be refreshing to hear. I do want to know that because right now I'm not in this country because it's a mockery of human rights and
Mhm.
Uh,
constitution and children rights
yeah,
and people with disabilities. Like it's a joke, and then it's suppressed to go out to the world.
Mhm.
So
but here's
here
the
we
scary
are.
thing.
This is gonna air all over because I'm traveling across Europe
Mhm.
and I'm making people aware of what's happening in America. So yeah, let's hear what rights do we still have in America? The First Amendment,
No, that's out the door. That's
Second
suppressed.
Amendment.
Nope, they take that away with frivolous OPs.
I don't know what
Mhm.
the third one is, to be honest. What is the third one?
Then you've got the fourth, which is search and seizure. Well, they do
Okay,
that.
they
They do
seized
that with
my car.
blatant,
They took my cell phone for no reason. Okay.
Yeah.
right?
The
Passports.
The
trial,
fifth,
the right to the trial or
well,
attorney,
that's
number
six. The
four.
fifth is the right to remain silent. However, if you don't state it, well, then it's presumed to be true if you don't
No,
rebut
no,
it.
they'll arrest you if you don't respond to the judge for
Oh, that's
contempt.
who. Oh, yeah,
Mm.
that's who. But what actually is somewhat interesting is if this was truly a social experiment in family court to deprive parents of their rights, what if this started seeping into criminal court where they can now violate what rights of others?
Mhm.
Because the parents, did the laissez-faire approach of not fighting for your rights. And
Yeah.
that seems to be happening as well in these little township courts. And
Mhm.
as Marta, I'm sure, can witness, it's happened in some of her hearings, which happened in NYP in New York City. And I know many other individuals that have had their rights violated um, due to unlawful process and procedure service within the parental community. And this is how parents are being criminalized.
Mhm.
And so it's going to continue throughout the judiciary if people don't start standing up and claiming and actually doing some research and reading into what these politicians stand for
Mhm.
and where it's going. And the only way to change it is to come together, as Marta was saying, to have these serious conversations, about what do words really mean.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah,
Very
no, that's
true.
part of it. That's part of it. And we're kind of going all over the subjects and we're,
yeah,
you know,
right.
in the different subjects. And Frank said you can edit and, make it to the coherent flow. I don't
Oh,
know if people will want to listen to the
oh,
whole
I
thing
thought this has been great. This has been a
because
really
we're all over the
quick.
place, you know,
We're good.
kind of.
Well, well, no, I thought this was great. This was educational. And if parents need to reach you, Marta, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I mean, they could go to our website, which is pfcbi.org, and they could click on the button Get Help, and that's being checked by volunteers, the email.
Mhm.
And I think that's the best way to reach. I will be checking that email too. And also they can sign up for community. And we've been having community meetings where we connect parents that have, experiences and kind of empower each other. And Frank has participated in some of these community meetings and he's met people that are experiencing this. And it's about not feeling alone, it's about learning from each other.
Mhm.
So at this time, as I've been through my healing journey and I've done a lot of spiritual work and I've done a lot of all kinds of healing, I feel like to be productive, a lot of us needs to heal to be more effective. So we will be focusing on healing from PTSD, on elevating our vibrations to attract more positive.
Mhm.
And we're doing it at 12 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom.
Mhm.
So you can go on our website and join, and please do it as early as possible. We are keeping structure,
Mhm.
although when you have PTSD, your moods change, and one day you want it, the next day you don't. But
Mhm.
we're gonna be here for you. And when you feel like you want to come, this is the place that there are real people, real parents that you can trust. And
Mhm.
we're gonna keep the privacy. We're gonna vet people. So not anyone can join, and people
Mhm.
have to turn their camera on. I know there's been a lot of issues which Frank may be aware of from his experiences. Yeah, so this is a real deal. So please come.
This is awesome. And Frank, if anyone needs to reach you, do you want them to come through me or Marta?
Yeah, if you guys would be able to assist with that, absolutely.
Okay.
That would be the best way as of right now. I'm still facilitating, trying to get
You
stable
can come
housing.
through our website too.
Right,
I mean, Frank
exactly.
has made a
I've
lot
got
of
access.
impact, even though he's has not joined our board officially yet. But he's on the list. He has a lot of experience. He made a lot of great contribution besides being helped. So he's very important, and we've been in close touch with Frank. So either way.
So
Well,
I'm still trying to put my mask on first, well, filled with oxygen that way. Then I
right.
can jump in and help others more successfully, even though I was able to do it in the past, but then a few things changed.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm. I get
as
it.
Marta says, when you go to see your child at a custody exchange and you get arrested,
Hmm.
it limits what you can do because now you have to figure out how to help yourself. And this is one way that they try to suppress and knock good people down.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you both very much. And don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like, subscribe, and share. Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, other platforms I don't even know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. Thank you, Marta, Bryceland, and Frank. I totally appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.